So move.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, motion carries. We'll move into our announcements. We'll start with the current situation update and association response. Go ahead, Joe.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody had a good 2 weeks. I'm not going to touch too much on it. I'm going to let Norm take over. He's got about 3 or 4 pages of stuff that we've been doing in some of our responses. So, Norm?
I'll do so. Thank you. Good evening, Board of Directors and Sudden Valley. Tonight is the updated operational picture, plus also Sudden Valley current status, as well as how we're responding and activities involved with the COVID-19 response in Whatcom County. The common operational picture starts with some current numbers. These are from Johns Hopkins University situation map as of 6 p.m. tonight. We have 341 confirmed cases in Whatcom County and 35 reported deaths. Washington State has 17,773 confirmed cases, 983 deaths. Objectives from Whatcom Unified Command. They are in operational period 11. A slight change from their previous pace. They are currently operational 5 days a week and not currently meeting on weekends. Their incident objectives are as follows: anticipate and develop plans to address potential second peak of COVID-19 infections, prevent and mitigate the spread of COVID-19, provide for the most vulnerable members of the community, ensure adequacy of first responder and healthcare personnel and equipment and supplies, enable continuity of essential operations, keep the public, stakeholders, and media informed of response activities, manage and coordinate the interagency response effort that reflects the makeup of Unified Command. Sudden Valley objectives have changed slightly based on the new phase that we have entered for the response. They are as followed: provide updates to Unified Command of Sudden Valley operational status, planning for surge operations due to the potential second spike of COVID-19 infections, coordinate with essential businesses, conduct essential business maintenance, operation, and recreational opportunities for phase 1 of the governor's Reopen Washington plan. Message out the requirements of social distancing and no gathering as they apply to phase 1. Share important messages with the membership on important updates from the governor's office, Unified Command, and information on local and Sudden Valley resources, including how to request help for our residents should they need that. Monitor the economic impact to Sudden Valley of the COVID-19 under phase 1 Reopen Washington plan. Maintain contact with partner agencies and operational readiness of Sudden Valley. Plan for business reentry for phases 2, 3, and 4 of the Reopen Washington plan per the governor's office, and recommendations provided by the public health officer and public health, both of the state and of Whatcom County. Plan with community partners processes to ease the burdens on the community for essential items such as food, providing opportunities for the community to have options to ease mental stress and of being sequestered at home. Our current operational status for COVID-19 phase 1, social distancing and gatherings, no change. Essential staffing, no change. Essential business operation phase 1 and recreation. The biggest change is, of course, the marina is now open, and there's a satellite office opened at the marina to facilitate that process, along with the parks are also open, and the trails are also open as well. And we are also maintaining our current work from home status as it applies for staff. COVID-19 meeting schedules in the next issue of the Views, the Sudden Valley PIO, which is a public information officer, will be submitting an article to the Views outlining the membership, a snapshot of what our weekly schedule is, interacting with the various county offices, as well as the unified command elements and public health and other key stakeholders for this response. This will be an article that will be released in a bullet fashion. However, the details for each one of these things that are occurring will occur in the general manager's full report as submitted for the next board meeting. Ongoing planning for reentry of the phases 2 and 3. Sudden Valley is working on an implementation requirements for those phases under the Reopen Washington plan. I'm going to go ahead and share what that looks like. I'm going to share my screen on that, if you'll bear with me. See if I can locate that. Okay. All right. Nope, I'm not able to locate the document I need, but it's everybody. I do have a copy I will hold up, and it is available on the governor's website. This is what the governor has published out on his website under Reopen Washington, phases 1, 2, and 3, and the requirements that are listed for each, such as high-risk populations, recreation, gathering, travel, and businesses and employers. Each phase has what that the governor's office has put forward as what will be, as he puts, open back up as the dials ease. And with that also is monitoring that's going to be under this phase we are under now, which is the contact and testing portion that the governor has spoke about earlier this week. Examples of phase 2 requirements for gatherings. This is to give you an idea of what's located in phase 2. Recreation opportunities will include beaches and camping, etc., with exercising the gatherings and social distancing outlined in phase 2. And social and spiritual gatherings will be permitted with proper social distancing. The concept of the operations coming from the governor's office for this, he starts to proceed to reopen Washington, and how Sudden Valley will communicate those out for phase 2 is messaging and placements of signages at our parks, marinas, trails, and other amenities. This is going to be the only viable tactic other than that we're going to be able to employ, and with that also include messaging out on our electronic media as well. The requirements under the Reopen Washington plan for social distances and gatherings. Understanding that currently, which has been widely discussed by public health and with unified command, that social distancing and gatherings are being violated all day, every day throughout the county. This best illustrated by the Freedom Parade held in Linden, where it was supposed to be a self-contained event on vehicles and ended up at Bender Field with a large number of people, a band and a food truck. And we in Sudden Valley also had a large gathering of people at the marina due to the weather and our parks. The ramifications of this won't be known for another 10 to 14 days, and public health is expecting what they call cluster infections. The enforcement options that are currently limited to online reporting to the Attorney General's office as they occur. Whatcom County Sheriff is currently their stance on violations of the proclamation is an educational mode and on gatherings and social distancing, and we will intend to follow the same path. The second outbreak and spike of COVID-19, as we stated, this is being widely expected by public health. And if you were watching Dr. Fauci speak on this earlier this week with Congress, from the national level, they're expecting this at all. So that is what we've asked our departments to do, is to continue to monitor and look at their business reentry plans under the phase 1, phase 2, 3, and 4. In particular, the recreation department, they will have the largest problem, I would say, because they're only going to be allowed to open up at certain things with certain amounts of people. And Maddie is working through that right now and coming up with contingencies on how we can best meet that. External messaging will have to continue. So you will see references to this in upcoming e-blasts, which is far and away our best communication tool, and also articles submitted to Sudden Valley Views as well for the printed media. And of course, we're willing to take questions anytime that anybody has them. And once again, Whatcom Unified is posting a lot of this information on their official site, which is still whatcomcovid.com. That's the situation status report as it currently exists. If are there any questions?
Mr. President, Linda?
Norm, I have a question. Do you know if the dates have remained the same for the phasing in? I know when it first came out, they had different dates, but then they were kind of modified a little bit. And I wondered if you could go through those. I know we're in phase 1 now. When do phase 2, 3, and 4 begin?
We can start with what the governor talked about with phase 2. First of all, let me preface that smaller counties in Washington state that have contained confections and are not large are being allowed to petition to enter in at phase 2 currently, with criteria provided by their health officer. The larger counties and middle-sized counties such as Whatcom are under the current plan, and the governor indicated this past week at his news conference that 31 May would be a time frame that's a target, but as he said, I am not married to that. I can also tell you that the opening of the international border, which was slated for 21 May, is now pushed back to June 21st. By agreement with both the Canadian government and the US government. So conditions at the international crossings will remain the same. They have target dates, Linda, is the best way I can articulate that they're working toward, but the governor has said on many occasions that the science will drive the exact time of when he'll make the decision to move from one phase to another.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, I don't see anyone else raising their hand.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Norm. As always, great job, and we appreciate the update. Okay, we'll move into our, we have a resignation from an officer post, being the treasurer. You've all received the details via email. Leslie, would you like to make any comment? Nope. Okay, so we need a motion to approve the treasurer's resignation.
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, motion carries. Assuming by acclamation. Okay, we'll move into our ACC vacancy. Is Rich with us?
I don't see his name on the board.
Mr.
Okay.
President, if I can speak for him, I believe we all got a note from him that there is a vacancy. I believe Jo Jean Koss tendered her resignation for the committee. We're just running it by the board to let you know. I have a posting ready to go for the opening that I will send to staff tomorrow to post the opening, and it will state then, and it has like a 30-day opening on it. So that's kind of where we're at, but I have that all ready to go. I just wanted it to formalize it here this evening.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate that. Do you need anything from us?
No, just that's been announced to you that there's an opening and we intend to post it.
Okay, thank you. Any Any questions for Linda?
Mr. President, no hands.
We will move into our property owner comments and board response.
So for property owners' comments here, please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom. You should find that towards the bottom of the screen. We do have a number of attendees tonight. If you're using the app, then you can just tap on the screen and it should give you the same kind of functionality. Oh, I have one hand here. I'm going to go ahead and bring this person in. Please give your name and address as if it was a regular live property owner's comments. Go ahead. I've got you listed as Connie.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, okay, thank you. Connie Hopper, 35 Watcher Drive. Thank you for hearing me. I'm assuming you're going to have to replace the treasurer's post, and I was just going to suggest that it would be awesome if the person replacing is somebody who has been elected to the board for two reasons, just because the property owners had a voice and elected that person. And secondly, because anyone who has been appointed or will be appointed with these openings currently there may be voted out in November. So for consistency, it would be good to have someone who has actually been elected. So my opinion, thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and return you here to the attendees. Anybody else? And that seems to be it for now. Not seeing any other hands raised.
Okay. Maybe wait a couple seconds here. All right, well, we'll carry on then. Thank you for all the IT support. And Connie, thank you for your comments. We will now move into the next agenda item, which is our member business proposals, which is a continuing business from last time, as you might recall. And I've asked that we have Mr. Davis join us in this discussion in case there's any clarification, or, I just thought it would be helpful to have him on board with us this evening. Leslie, looks like you have your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, I want at this time to move that we go into committee of the whole so that we can discuss this issue without having to have a motion on the table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. So we're in a committee of the whole, so we can speak freely and in a discussion type environment, correct? Perfect.
I guess,
Mr. President, Linda.
I guess I have a question for Rich. And I know that when we were kind of discussing this online about bringing this up for a topic this evening, we had talked about forming it as a board policy. We already have rules and regulations that people have to follow. And I guess I'm wondering, is it better to, if we move forward with this and when we move forward with this, is this something that is better to be put as a board policy, or should it be added to our rules and regulations that already have some distinction about how our residences are used?
I'm sorry, Linda, when you say if it should be put forward, what is the it exactly? Are you just looking for, are you asking whether there should be further definition of
Yes,
how?
if there is further definition of what sort of businesses, should that be a board policy, or would it be better for it to go under our rules and regulations, which are really easy for the members to find online?
I think it ought to go into the rules and regulations. I think that there ought to be official action by the board. Now, you're not going to be able to cover every situation, but if there are certain things that you wanted to express that are allowed or disallowed, if you want to give specific examples, I think that the rules and regulations are a good place for those to land.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Paula.
Thank you. Again, this is also for Mr. Davis. Thank you for being here. And can you just for the, I know that, or I assume everybody has read the information that was sent out. Your opinion was sent to the board. Could you just give us a very top level summary for the purpose of this discussion right now of kind of where that was? And I was a little bit unclear. I mean, you gave quite a few references to case law, but I was a little unclear about where there may be some, I don't know if gray areas is the word that I want to use, but in cases such as Airbnbs, there's not really good legal direction, at least not that I saw or that I could find. And there's some ambiguity. So if you could give us maybe some direction for the overall conversation tonight, that would be helpful.
Sure. So you start with the covenants for Sudden Valley, which say that lots are to be used for residential purposes. And keep in mind that your covenants are a contract amongst all property owners in Sudden Valley. So they can be enforced not only by the community association, but also by any individual owner. So for instance, if I lived in Sudden Valley and had a neighbor that was operating a business and I felt that that was in violation of the covenants, I could bring an action against the neighboring property owner to have him stop. So when you become a resident of a community association, there are ordinarily restrictive covenants that are kind of general in nature. They're more like your constitution, right? Things that are very difficult to change. It is kind of the general scheme of development, so to speak, for an association. Sun Valley's you really don't have very extensive covenants, but the one that's pertinent here is the one that says that you are to use your lots for the sole purpose of residential purposes. So the courts in Washington have looked at this issue in a number of cases, and I went into a little bit of detail on those cases. There's not a ton of cases, but I would say that the takeaway from this is that the Washington Supreme Court has continually held that businesses are not consistent with a residential use restriction. And I realize that there's the covenants, and then there's also the governmental codes that apply, zoning codes. Those zoning codes may well allow things that your covenants do not allow. And part of living in a community association, the Supreme Court has said, is that you abdicate some of the rights you might otherwise have if you just lived in a privately owned neighborhood that wasn't subject to restrictive covenants. So I would argue that the court has not been very lenient in allowing businesses, when it is faced with covenants that say that the properties are to be used for residential purposes. And the examples that I cited in my memo were an adult family home, a daycare center, and the daycare was actually fairly, it arose out of a case in Tweed 20, not too far away from Sudden Valley. It went to Superior Court where Judge Moynihan decided that, and then went up to the Supreme Court ultimately. Maine's Farm dealt with 4 unrelated individuals living in a home, again, adult family home. The court said you can't do that. But the case that is a little bit of a ringer is this last case that was decided back in, I think it was 2014, and that's the Wilkinson case. And what it said was that you can't pass restrictions that are inconsistent with the general scheme of development. And so there, what the association tried to do is to limit vacation rentals, short-term rentals. And there was no rental restriction set forth in the covenants. And the court said, if you're a property owner and you come into this community association, you see that rentals are allowed. And so now to then limit the types of rentals that you can have is inconsistent with that general scheme, and we're not going to allow that to take place. The other, in kind of getting to that, there were some mental gymnastics that the court went through. The court was trying to distinguish some of the earlier cases, and what it said was, if there are services provided on site, then that's inconsistent. And so to give you an example, vacation rentals generally don't provide any services on site. It's just a rental, like a long-term rental, but of shorter duration. A bed and breakfast, by contrast, someone is cooking breakfast in the morning and serving it to the tenants. That's a service. That's a business, is what the court said. So the upshot of all of this, it seems to be that if services are being provided on site for customers, clients, that it may constitute business. It's tough to give any more direction because every case, the court has been very clear, we're going to determine these cases on a or on a case-by-case basis. What I tried to do on page 7 of the memo is give some examples and what I thought the likely outcome would be. There are going to be a plethora of other what ifs and hypotheticals that I'm sure each of you are thinking about. And I can only give you guidance based on what I've read in the cases and what's existing. But I think the general rules that apply to this, I've kind of laid out both in the memo and just now. The concern that I've got is that not a concern, but just a comment that I would make. I know we're all trying to look out for each other in this time of a pandemic where a lot of people have been laid off and people are hurting for money. The question is whether the board would have the authority to do something on its own to just kind of waive that covenant or put it on hold, suspend it for a period of time until this pandemic eases up. And I don't really think the board has that authority because this is a covenant. This is a contract between the members and the club. And I think what you'd have to do is you'd have to go back to the membership and amend the covenants. And the problem with that is this recent case of Wilkinson suggests that because it's a contract, everybody has to agree. So and unanimous consent would need to be required, which is virtually impossible, particularly in the size of a community association of Sudden Valley. The concern in not enforcing this covenant is that if you try and enforce it against certain property owners but not others, then it's easy for the property owner who's the target of enforcement to say, well, but look at them. Oh, look at all these other businesses that you're not enforcing. You don't have any right to enforce it. And I think a court would be somewhat sympathetic to somebody who made that argument, selective enforcement. If you let a number of businesses go unchecked, then eventually, if it gets bad enough so that it doesn't look like you're enforcing it at all, the court can say, well, you've just abandoned that covenant. That's a very high standard. That's not going to happen anytime soon, but it's something that can happen. And then the final concern that I raised in the memo was, if I'm a property owner and I have a business going on next to me, let's suppose it's a mechanic. And there's noise that comes out of there because they're working on cars and all of that. If the board isn't going, or the association isn't going to enforce this, then I may take that on my own and go to court because this is disturbing my enjoyment of my own property. And I've got a contract that says you can't do that next door. So what you can do kind of unintentionally is engender litigation between property owners, which is not really something that you ordinarily want to do. So those were my concerns about kind of looking the other way, even for kind of a brief period of time. I hope that's kind of a general overview.
Go ahead, Paula.
Just wanted to ask a quick follow-up to that. So, and what you said about the service and the B&Bs and bed and breakfast and Airbnb makes sense to me. Is there a sense of if I'm hearing you right, non-service types of business should be allowable? From what I'm hearing, I mean, or correct me if I'm wrong, if you have I don't know, something where people aren't coming in and out of your home and you're not providing a service, if you had a business like that in your home, that sounds like that would possibly be allowable, like maybe a gray area.
No, I think generally, let's say that you are, you're a lawyer or you're an accountant and you do your work at home, on the phone, by email. I think that's allowable. You're not servicing clients on site.
Okay.
But I gave the example of a massage therapist who has clients visit the home and the massage is given. I think that's a business that under existing case law would not be allowed.
Okay.
That's the kind of business though that wouldn't have a lot of, first of all, it'd be tough probably to know that it's going on, number one. And two, it wouldn't cause a lot of disruption.
Correct.
The one thing about enforcement is, there's a cost attendant to that and a degree of proof that has to be met. Not every case is going to be obvious. Even something that you might think might be obvious, like a mechanic. You see cars out at one location. They're different cars all the time. You think a business is being operated there, but can you prove it? You can do all kinds of enforcement that's just not looking the other way, such as sending a letter that says, this is a reminder, you cannot operate a business. We've noticed cars, coming in and out of your residence. If we become aware that it's a business that's being conducted there, we'll take enforcement action. That way you've got a record that you are, you're enforcing. Not every case is going to be obvious, and nor is the association going to want to spend money on every case because it doesn't have money to just pay Schmelik, Sicken, and Davis all the time to enforce these things. So.
Right.
President,
And then just my last follow-up was on risk for the corporation. If we are getting, say we were to get complaints, you talked about the neighbor suing neighbor, but is there a risk for the association in not enforcing? And that's my last one, I promise.
Yeah, and I think that a member could bring that claim against the association for or against the board for failing to abide by its duties, its responsibilities. But I'm not sure where that goes, quite honestly. There's not a lot of there's not much guidance in the case law regarding that. But could you get involved in a lawsuit about that? I mean, if someone were irritated that the board is doing nothing about it, could certainly expect it.
Mr. President, AJ.
So I guess I was just kind of trying to digest all this. It feels like it's somewhat of a no-win situation. We can enforce this and then we, go down this path of potential selective enforcement. Some of your examples, it was like, and you even alluded to this, you almost have to be like spying on our community members to like determine if they're breaking some rule or not by watching what's coming and going from their property. And then like on the other hand, if we do nothing and we just say, this is really not our issue, you guys are private property owners, you guys deal with it yourselves. If people have issues, it doesn't feel like we have like a very solid way to move forward on anything. And then you brought up the idea of the concept of like, we'd have to decide which cases are worth actually enforcing and spending time and money and resources on, which ones aren't. I don't know, it sounds like a very convoluted decision to make to me, and it almost seems easiest, at least in my opinion. You have an underlying Whatcom County zoning code and the association takes a stance that, we're not going to enforce this, as some of it feels like there's intrusion on people's privacy to be able to do such. It's time and money and resources spent doing it. And you know, you can just make the stance that we're gonna allow people to use the Whatcom County zoning code and if people want to deal with each other via private property civil suit, they can go down that road. It seems like it'd be difficult to prove that, you know, because the board took that stance that we were being somehow negligent to our property owners. You know, we're reverting back to a county code that establishes rules for all of that stuff.
Yes, the county code establishes the baseline. For instance, if you did not have something in your covenants, but that was prohibited by the code, then while you could not enforce it, the county could. But you've got some restrictions that are more restrictive than the county code. I by no means am suggesting that you purchase a fleet of drones and spy on your members, or that you do anything of that nature. What happens ordinarily in practice, and Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, I dealt with a number of violations or potential violations when Mitch was the general manager. And the way it would come to him is somebody would complain about something. You know, they thought that there was business activity going on and it was disturbing. Otherwise, we generally don't know about it. What we don't know about is not going to cut against us. In other words, we're not going to be found to have waived our rights here to enforce violations when we don't know about them. When a complaint comes to us and it looks to be a legitimate complaint, then you can take a little bit of, you can do a drive-by or something fairly minimal in cost, just to see if you think that there's anything further to do there. And sometimes there will be, and sometimes there won't. You can also make a determination based on the amount of disruption to the neighborhood, right? Some businesses would be more disruptive than the others. So it's up to the association to decide what level of enforcement, how much resources to devote, but every association goes through, I mean, most of the associations I represent have some kind of restriction that is similar to this, and they have to go through the same kind of thought process whenever they become aware of violations.
Mr. President, Leslie.
Yeah, I wanted to say that as far as I'm concerned, what people do inside their own homes is up to them. It's none of our business. It only becomes the business of the association if they start to violate our rules and regulations, which are already there. Regulations for signage, regulations for noise, for noxious odors, for this sort of thing. And these are the things that become obvious. If somebody has a little business inside their home and they are selling online or something like that, and it doesn't disrupt the neighborhood at all, I don't have any problem with that at all. It's when it falls out into the street and it bothers their neighbors, then it becomes an issue. And I think that we already have rules and regulations in place to deal with most of those situations.
I'm gonna go have this.
Mr. President, Linda.
I think one of the things when we talk about Airbnbs and because they are allowed, I think the thing that's a little unnerving about them is I doubt very much, and Joe could tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think people register those with us, although we do have a section in our rules and regulations that if you lease your property, which an owner is allowed to do, that you have to name the people who are living in that house and that sort of thing. I think for some things, let's say somebody rents out their house for an Airbnb and you have 3-4 people in here and somebody hits that person's car or damages their property. We have no way of knowing who that person is, you know, and if the owner just says, you know, hey, you know, then it's a he said, she said sort of thing. It's why Airbnbs are I don't know, it makes me kind of nervous. I know there's several of them in here, at least there have been in the past. And I know that some people have had issues with noise a little bit and that sort of thing. And the actual owner's not cleaning up after the people when they leave, but that would be my concern a little bit.
Mr. President, Steffi.
Thank you. I don't think that having a home-based business is a big deal at all. And in fact, I think that when we have over 3,000 lots out here, something like a home daycare is going to do nothing but benefit the area. Sounds like the law is pretty gray on both sides, just like AJ said. I'm a little astounded that we're talking about this during this. Like, we should only be talking about essential things. And I mean, this just seems like the whole thing that brought this up, the guy shut down. So, I mean, I'm just like, we should have less meetings during this time. And I think that the community should be more engaged when we're discussing things that affect them. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Mr. President, Karen.
So one thing that has come up over, and this happened when I was on ACC and just in general, you hear it in conversations, is I think there is an expectation from members that they can go to the association for help if there is, you know, a neighbor behaving in a way that they think is somehow disturbing them. So whether it's too much traffic or, you know, creating parking issues or noise or whatever. And so I like what you said, Mr. Davis, about how, not what I gathered from it was not necessarily that we are in a position to police anything, but when a dispute arises, that based on our rules, the association can maybe help to resolve some of those disputes based on our understanding of what our covenants mean. And I think anything, if we are to go any further with this, any further clarification, that I like kind of having that in mind, is that we're not necessarily trying to police anything, but helping to resolve disputes when they arise, not necessarily trying to go out and look for who might be running a business. Because I think you're right. I think we probably have a lot in Sudden Valley, and most of them are not, you know, they're not, nobody even knows it. It's really not even an issue at all. It's just if an issue were to arise.
Mr. President, Paula.
I just want to say, I think what drove this discussion in the beginning, if I remember correctly, is should we somehow open it up to everybody or create a board policy that would open up or relax or otherwise negate these rules, regulations, and covenants during this time. And I think we're pretty clearly, and it sounds like we're all in agreement that, one, we can't do that. We can't just get rid of the covenants or take the steps as a board to relax them during this time, but we can do what we're doing and allow people to have their businesses. If they are within their homes, they're not creating a nuisance. We don't hear about them, and that we could go on and just doing what we've done and responding to complaints. So to that end, I think I would suggest that we look at that and maybe move on from this, because I think it sounds like we're all in agreement that there's not much that we're going to do as a board to change anything. Rather, we're going to move forward on it. So I would just suggest that we do so.
Mr. President, Josh.
It seems like this is an opportunity for the future to look at ways to reach out to the community of people that might need help. Like I could see with the hot dog stand, you know, maybe there was a specific place that we could help put, you know, Michael's stand somewhere where it's not, you know, in his residence or whatever. I know he goes out to the when we do the Taste of Bite of Sun Valley, he's out there and stuff. And maybe there's some other opportunities that we can help with throughout the community for people who have some businesses that might need that sort of help in the future. If there's ever, hopefully there's not another pandemic, but where times are kind of tough and straining on people. And, I don't even know if anyone else has come forward asking for any kind of favor to do their business here. But it's something to look at for the future. I don't know what kind of options there are. I know that you're probably always going to end up in that selective area somehow. But if the community knows that we can help them in a way, if we can help them, it would be good to kind of set up a plan like that for the future.
Mr. President, that's it.
Okay, and I'll just throw it out there. Any final comments for Mr. Davis or questions? Any closing comments or thoughts, Mr. Davis?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, thank you again for your time this evening. I know I really appreciate it. I think we all agree that it was very helpful having you join us. So again, thank you for your time.
All right, you're welcome. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, Mr. President, I move that we go back into the regular session now.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We're back into our regular session. We'll move into our NNE update. Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, first thing I'm going to deal with is the board vacancy. We have candidates and we can do the interviews. I propose that we move forward with this and the appointment at the next meeting on, I believe, is May 24th. I've sent emails to each of the candidates and informed them that the interviews will be done online and that if they have concerns should contact me. I'd suggest that we begin at 6:30 like we have. I think there's only 3. So you should be able to do that voting and stuff so that the regular meeting can start at 7 or as close to 7 as possible. I will be providing you all with the applications and the disclosure of interest statements. Do you have any preference when you receive this? I'll probably just mail it to the board as a PDF or a zip file. I guess that's my question that I have for you guys. And I can send a copy to staff in case any of you want to arrange for printed copies instead. I believe, and I haven't heard from staff, but I know Lisa's here. I believe they have found a way for private voting online for you guys. And if we'll probably be using that, it's through this Zoom program that we're on. And we'll probably use it if necessary when you do your election of the treasurer replacement and appointment that you're going to be doing. The other thing that I have is the NNE is moving forward with a third-party election vendor. We've down to 2 that we're looking at bids from. I hope that either on the meeting on the 24th or the first meeting in June, we can bring it to the board for a decision by you to move forward with this. It's within our budgeted amount of money, which is really great. I'll talk more about it now. I think this year is going to be all paper ballots, but I'll talk about that later. I don't want to do that now. But those are my updates that I have for you.
Linda, I believe that the next board meeting is the 28th.
The 28th, that works. I've got too many dates in my head. Thank you, Mike. So it would be, then I would ask if we could do this on the 28th. I'd just like a consensus of the board that this is suitable for you guys.
I'm set.
Are you looking for an
Thanks, Linda.
actual motion for that? Or just general agreement?
I just think it's general agreement that I'm looking for from you guys. Hey, those thumbs up work for me. All right, we'll start at 6:30 then on the 28th. Do you know how soon ahead of time you would like to have those applications sent to you. I'll just send it to the board for you to review before the meeting. Do you, is that Monday before the meeting soon enough?
Whenever you have them.
Okay,
Sooner the better for me anyways. I'm busy these days.
well, we'll see. I've got them already. They're already sitting in a file. If you want, I can send them out this week or after we have our meeting of N&E, which is going to be on Monday. I'd kind of like to fill them in on what's going on, and maybe I can just send it out to you guys and you have plenty of time to look at them.
That sounds
And
fine
maybe
to
that's
me.
a better way to do it.
That sounds good to me.
Okay, that's all I have then.
Thank you, Linda. Gosh, that sounds like a lot of work. So thank you.
We've been having lots of fun.
Well, that's important as long as you're having fun. So we'll move into our new business trails master plan. Go ahead, Joe.
All right, good evening. We sent this out to the board last time. Maddie got it to us. We brought it back up. I wanted the board to see it. There was a lot of time, energies, and efforts put into it, and it is a big part of the community. So I wanted you guys to take some time to look at it. I just didn't want you to get it and say, oh, okay. So that's why we brought it back up. And I have Maddie here as well to discuss anything that you guys might have questions on. Maddie?
Hi, guys. It was a large document, so I hope everyone was able to download it. I know, Linda, I hope you're able to get it.
No, it's too big.
Well, we can set it up in Google, so you can we'll send you a link, and we'll put the link on the website too, if it's okay with you guys, so everyone can see it, so you don't have to download it onto your computer. I think that particular viewer doesn't allow for a certain large size file, so that was the problem. But we just wanted to tell you guys about it because the Parks Trails Rec Committee has been working on it for 3 or 4 months now. And the point was really to capture, what trails we have, where they are, what condition they're in, and recommendations for improvements. And the committee really wants you guys to have that. So going forward, when making decisions, you're aware of really what we're working with. We have about 20 known trails. 16 of those, in our opinion, are walkable trails for community members to use. And of those walkable trails, it amounts to about a little over 10 miles. And we have a varying amount of trails. There's trails in all of the gates. We have some really easy ones like Lake Louise Trail. I like to call it the mini Lake Padden because it's actually exactly half the size of Lake Padden. And I think the elevation is about half too. So that's a great one for families to use. And then we have some much difficult ones like the Area Y Trail, which is amazing. And it feels like you're not even in the city or in a neighborhood at all. So yeah, we're just really excited about the work and happy to answer any questions that you guys have. And some of the main recommendations that they have were signage. Signage is a big one. And then if there's an opportunity to create off-street parking, then we should take that opportunity just because parking is an issue out here. But that's kind of all we got.
Mr. President, I think I saw Linda's hand.
I've got a question for you, Maddie. So you said that out of the 20 trails we have, 16 are hikeable. What sort of plans, or do you have a schedule for when people will be working on them? I know for a while here, there were some people working in Gate 5 on that trail that runs along Lake Louise Road there. And I just wondered, is there a schedule for some of these? That I assume you have to upkeep the ones we've got, and I don't know if you have plans on, expanding some of the trails.
Yeah, so of those 16 walkable ones, the parks crew focuses on maintaining those. And really, they've been categorized by the Parks Trails Rec Committee for the ones that they think are the most frequently used. So ones like Lake Louise Trail, we try to keep in really good condition. And they visit that one all the time and they walk it all the time to make sure it's it's good. So the Parks Trails Rec Committee has prioritized the ones. For the other ones, we would consider those to be larger projects because some of them are significantly impacted, like they have big trees over them or landslides have affected them. So like with parks, parks typically picks one park a year to kind of renovate. That'd be the same for trails, that we pick one trail each year that we want to renovate. And they picked Area Y Trail this year, and Area Y actually comes off of Lake Louise Road Trail, which is that trail that you referenced, Linda, that the volunteers were working on. So those are actual trails subcommittee volunteers who go out there and do that. And our parks guys bring them tools and supplies and kind of assist them. But then they do some of the harder work, like bushwhacking and getting trees out of the way and that kind of thing. So yeah, they do have a schedule, and I can send that to you guys if you're interested.
Ooh,
Hey, Maddie,
I am.
Mr. President, AJ.
Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, Maddie, with that repair work, let's put that on the website so everybody knows what, where, and when.
Yeah, not a problem.
So I had a couple kind of questions and things that ideas that I had on this when I looked through it. I didn't see anything in there talking about use of the trail, or like if they're multi-use, bikes, hiking. I did notice one of the trails had some like rundown mountain bike features potentially that were built long ago. Is that addressed anywhere, or are people allowed to use multi-use on those trails? I know like Lake Louise Trail says no bikes, but looking at more like the forest ones kind of.
Yeah, the only trail I know of that has like a restriction about use is Lake Louise. You can't bike around Lake Louise trail, but that's the only one I know of. So the other ones can be used for, you know, mountain biking, but some of them just aren't in a condition to do that. Some of them are narrow, some of them are wider, but most of them are pretty steep in elevation, and they'd be hard. But we can address that if you'd like. I mean, we can make recommendations, and if there's a trail that other people are like, hey, bikes shouldn't be on here, you know, we can look at that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was discussed at all or not. And then I noticed on some of the GPS track maps, sometimes it was hard to tell which trail it was because there was multiple trails shown. So if we could maybe somehow isolate just the one trail that section is discussing. You know, some of them have multiple trails and it's pretty obvious, is like the one right in the center and the other ones are off in the corners. And then some of them, there's kind of two that are close by, and you're like, which one am I looking at here?
Talking about like the picture at the end of like the trail. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it was like the GPS track on the aerial imagery.
Yeah, we wanted to give more perspective, like, oh, it's next to this other trail, or, you know, it's close to gate 9. So that's why we kind of zoomed out, but we can redo those pictures. Doesn't take almost any time.
Yeah, just an idea. I mean, I'm not like saying you have to do that or not, but and then I was just kind of curious, is the priorities that were at the end, is that stuff decided by the Parks and Trails Committee then?
Yeah, so those are their recommendations for priorities, you know, what trails should be improved first. And it is subject to budget, obviously, and we have 2 park staff who have to share their time between, you know, doing parks renovations and trails too. So, but that's their recommendations at the end.
Okay.
Mr. President, Josh.
Oh, I just have one more thing, sorry. I just, on that, follow up on that, it's not really necessarily a question for Maddie, but an opinion. The last one on there was, Area Z Trail, which does not currently exist. Is that correct?
As far as I know, yeah, that was kind of a wish list one. where they were thinking it'd be great to connect it somehow so you wouldn't have to bike or walk along Lake Louise Road. So that's kind of why it's at the end. The other ones are of more priority because they're present and it's not going to take as much work. And that's kind of the last one on there.
Yeah, I guess I'm just going to throw out my opinion. I think that would be a great endeavor maybe to tackle, you've talked about some of the volunteer work, maybe we can utilize some volunteer work parties. I think it would be excellent to be able to have connectivity of trail from gate 5 all the way to the community center. I don't know. I just think that's something I thought about for this community is how could you build a trail network system that kind of connects everybody to everybody that we wouldn't have to do so much walking on our narrow roads and, worrying about cars going and our kids, biking and making less than ideal decisions when near.
Mr. President,
Yep.
Josh.
Maddie, I got this document to under 10 megs if you want me to send it to you.
Oh, yes, please.
Okay. It was just so hard for my computer to digest. I'm like, I got to do something about this
It's
thing.
over like 60 pages, I think. With
Yeah.
pictures.
Don't
Yeah.
worry, no charge. The signage, I know I spoke with Joe a long time ago. I would like to be involved in that if you guys would have me. I can't come to all the committee meetings or anything, but if you need any help with that, please reach out and we can push it through the communications committee and take a look at some standards that we can set up with a couple of new signage spots or designs that you can then roll out to the other ones, so
That'd be awesome.
let me know.
Yeah, they talked about the new gate signs and they really like their design. Be nice to have a uniform sign code or something so they all
Right.
look similar.
That would be awesome.
Mr. President, Karen.
So Joshua, can you send that to all of us? Because I had the same thing. I wasn't able to open it. So could you just send it
Yeah,
out or
of course.
send it to Maddie and have her send it back?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, thanks. So
Mr.
I wanted to thank Maddie. I know how much work this is for you and the committee to do. It's like herding cats a little bit, like when we did with the park. So thanks it's nice to have it in one document. I know how much easier that makes planning going forward, and I was just gonna respond, AJ, that was the original plan here, was to have trails connecting everything, but just over the years, they got so overgrown and there was encroachment and it seemed like the whole entire plan was abandoned. So I'm actually really impressed with the parks guys and the volunteer group, how much they've been able to accomplish in just a short time, because not too long ago we were looking at them and we're like, okay, I guess it's Lake Louise and that's it. Like even Picnic Point Trail from AM to PM Beach seemed pretty just, non-existent. So it's pretty impressive what has been accomplished. So thanks.
Mr. President, Joe.
Hey, Josh, yes, we will get you involved with the signage and AJ, I was going to respond to you but Karen beat me to it. So yeah, I think it would be a great idea if we could try to get all the trails looped into one big circuit. So that could be a project that we work with Parks and Trails going forward.
Mr.
I
President,
think it'd be
I
awesome.
believe I saw Paula's hand. No, I apologize. Mr. President, I see no other hands.
Okay, well, gosh, thank you, Maddie. Can we give her a virtual round of applause?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this in front of us. Clearly, we all appreciated it. And so,
Yeah, and with your
great.
permission, we'd love to put it on the website so the rest of the community members can view it. And we do have the data in a different form. So if you go to the front page of the website or the rec page, it's already in Google Maps. So you just click on like Gate 1 Trail or Gate 3 and 5. You can click on there. And if you click on the blue line, all the data will come up. So like elevation, photos of it and distances. It's based on my walking and I'm a pretty average walker. So, it's pretty accurate. And yeah, so it's already out there. And this is just a more detailed version of it.
Okay. Was that your black lab in the photos?
That's Buddy. He's the rec dog.
Oh, the rec dog. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. 7 months now. So, yep.
Mr. President, AJ has his hand up.
Can I just say one more thing? I don't know one way or the other, but I was wondering if we should put the out of order trails in this document out on the website. If they're, some of them are like, they seem awesome and we're kind of hyping them up like they are awesome and have this potential, but then they're sketchy and dangerous. And I'm wondering if maybe we couldn't put them in some sort of appendix, maybe as like potential future trail options, so they don't seem like, hey, everybody go check out this awesome waterfall that the trail is like eroding and falling apart and you may fall down the hill on, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I made a second version that
you guys
removed
kind
all
of
of
chew
those
on that and
out
decide
of
what
the
you may.
trails. So I can post that if you guys want.
Yes.
Okay.
Good point, AJ. Okay, any further questions for Maddie or for Joe? Okay, well, again, thank you so much, Maddie.
Yeah,
for your
thanks,
time.
guys. Talk to you later.
Okay, so we'll move into our treasurer appointments. I believe Linda is leading us through this.
Yeah, that's me. I have a
Go
real
ahead.
quick question for Leslie. Leslie, will you be staying on the finance committee or will there be a vacancy there?
Well, that's up to the new treasurer.
So in theory, how do I say this? Then we'll just leave this open for discussion. That works for me just fine.
Wouldn't Karen already be the other board member on there? So then if the new treasurer had Leslie, they'd have to remove Karen.
It would be up to the new treasurer, who could remove everybody on the finance committee and reappoint.
Wow, that would be a shame given the condition we're in now, but that answers my question.
We can't answer that question right now.
Okay, that's just fine. Then I guess with the announcement of the treasurer's resignation, I move that the board open nominations to vote and appoint a new treasurer to the executive committee. And so I'll open the floor now for you to put nominations up.
Mr. President, I nominate Karen Borchert for the office of treasurer.
Second,
Discussion. Or excuse me, are there any
Any
other?
other nominations?
Yes.
I nominate AJ Tischlitter for treasurer.
Second.
Who did the second, please?
Josh?
Josh.
Josh did.
Mhm.
Do I have any other nominations? I'm assuming both of you are willing to serve if you are elected. Correct? Okay, at this time, I'm going to be turning voting over to Lisa, and she's going to explain to you what you need to do. And then between she and John, Lisa, as far as I'm concerned, as long as you have the trail that we talked about, you can give them the results once the voting is finally done and they've reached a consensus.
Okay, I'm going to ask John to give you a little tutorial on how we're going to do this.
Yeah, because of the unique way that we sort of structure these Zoom meetings, the best way to do this, unfortunately, is simply to private message through the chat feature in Zoom. And that is to send a private message to Lisa with your voting selection. It will retain a copy of the results that Lisa can work with Linda with. So it's got that nice paper trail. So that's the big plus there. and it's also entirely private. So as long as you, when you go down to the bottom of your screen, whether you're on the app or whether you're on a PC, you'll see chat, and select in the little 2 box there, select Lisa Armstrong.
Can we do this live with the test module, the 1-2 test? Like have everybody do this right now as you speak?
Yeah. Why don't everybody go ahead and just send a message to Lisa. Yeah.
Just choose a 1 or a 2.
Sure.
And that way I'm going to tally it like as if you voted on a person, but it's a 1 or a 2. And I will let Linda know who the winner is, how many 2s and 1s win. And that, I mean, that way we're just kind of test running this whole election thing. Does that make sense?
Go to chat, right?
All right, I think I did my test.
Yeah, I click on it and something changes on the right-hand side.
It says, oh, it says to all panelists, no. I
Don't do
need
that.
to find Lisa, correct?
That's right. You want to make sure you find
Got
Lisa.
it.
It will say next to Lisa's name privately. So
If
you
you
will see
just
that.
double click Lisa's name in the panelist list, it'll automatically open up a chat box that you can then, it'll have it
Gotcha.
privately set to Lisa already.
How do you?
I've got Andrew, Steffi, Paula, AJ, and Josh.
How do I send to her? Just hit enter?
You did.
Yes. Once you enter in your,
Okay.
you hit enter and it'll.
You should
You
have.
didn't get one from me, Lisa.
No.
All
Did you
right.
get
I'll
mine,
try the
Lisa?
different way.
Okay, I've got Linda.
Okay.
I
I'll
feel
try
like we
again.
need to queue up like Jeopardy music or something.
I know, seriously. Steffi, Paula, Karen, Andrew,
Push on chat.
Steffi, Paula, twice. AJ, Josh, and Linda.
What do I
Oh,
click on?
Karen, I got you.
Okay, good.
I got you.
There,
Okay.
there is a polling function in Zoom that I'd love to use.
So then you put in.
But for webinars, it's actually, it won't work to separate panelists and attendees. So for future meetings, if we need to do voting, we may want to set this up in a regular meeting beforehand. So like for example, this next time coming around here, since we're going to be doing things before, we could set up a meeting beforehand, kind of like the closed session we did the first time we did this.
Okay.
So Leslie, do you need help yet?
Yeah, I'm
Okay. Let
Looking
John or Lisa help you.
on the right.
And would it make sense for someone to show their screen and show how to walk through the steps, or?
Let's see here.
So Leslie, if you just go to the bottom of your screen and hover at the bottom, you see the chat bubble.
I do.
Click on that.
Okay.
And then if you look at the bottom where it says 2, there's a name there.
It's on the right-hand side.
I don't see a 2.
At the very bottom of your chat, it should say 2, and then give you.
Doesn't.
It says
It's just
everyone.
it's just a blank, a white balloon.
Oh dear.
Okay, so if you click on the blank balloon
Yeah.
where it says
And-
chat, it doesn't bring up a
Question answer.
chat window.
No.
Okay, here I can.
You can also try clicking on the bottom center participants.
Yeah, and I do have that on the right-hand side.
And then go double click Lisa's name on that list of under panelists. Try that. That's what I did.
Yeah, I see her name and
Just click on that.
click and I double click and I'm getting nothing.
Double click.
Yeah, no.
And it should pull up the Zoom webinar chat when you double click her name.
Okay, Zoom webinar chat. There we go.
And then if you type in test and then hit enter.
Or type in a 1 or a 2.
Does it say to Lisa privately?
Oh, here we go. Message down the bottom. Okay. I have. Oh, you got a message from me?
I do.
Hooray.
But
Okay.
You typed in 1, 2, 3. Just type a 1 or a 2.
Okay. So are those for the two candidates that we're doing now?
We're
Or-
just, it's just a test. So we can
Okay.
get like some, how
Okay,
many
there we
people
go.
voted? Okay, gotcha.
Okay,
Okay. Is that everybody? 3, 7. Who am I missing?
Should be 8.
Yeah, it should be 8. I've got Leslie, Mike, Linda, Josh, AJ, Paula, Steffi, Andrew, Karen. Who am I missing?
Did you say Mike?
I do.
Oh, you need Mike.
Okay,
and
no, I got it. I got it. Okay, so as our test, I'm going to now private message Linda with the results so that she can present them to you as the entity chair.
Well, the question is, so if this was just kind of a test, I think Leslie put 1, 2, 3 on there.
She changed it.
Oh, I just
We'll
wrote
change
test
it.
on mine.
Yeah,
Oh,
I-
then AJ, no wonder I've got a, can you just give me a number, 1 or 2?
Oh, okay.
So who's 1 and who's 2, Lisa?
Oh, no, this is a test. This is not a name, it's just a test.
Okay,
Okay. So Linda, I'm sending you the results.
and I'm gonna pick that up how?
You're gonna look at your chat.
I'm gonna look at my chat,
I'm
okay.
gonna send it to you privately. This is, okay, can you see that?
I see, it says number 1 wins 5-3.
An anonymous person asked if Linda can vote.
No. I am a non-voting member of the board.
All right, I think the
She
question.
just wrote in test. She didn't give me a number, but anyway, this was just to see how this whole thing works, and it does. This is just so that no one on the board sees who voted how.
There's, yeah, nothing
I
showed up.
didn't see anything from anyone else.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Okay, well, John,
least-
This time,
the
if you
chat.
call, go ahead, Lisa, you lead it.
John, do you know how to clear the chat so that I can get rid of this test so that I can record the actual vote? Or do I just have to include it?
I think you may
know
just have to go with it. Yeah, I don't really see a way to clear the chat here.
Okay, so that'll just be saved. Our test will be saved with the actual vote, but that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, folks. If you want to vote for your,
Are you giving them a number?
Yeah, who's gonna be 1 and who's gonna be 2?
no, just write their name.
No, just put their name down. You're either gonna put Karen or AJ.
I have AJ, Karen, Paula, Leslie, Steffi, Andrew, and Josh. That's everyone? I need Mike.
You need Mike.
After I type in the name, do I have to push enter or anything?
Just hit the enter key.
Oh, Norm's helping Mike.
You should get it now. I didn't see it.
So there's 8 voting members?
Yes,
Okay.
You should have mine.
Okay, Linda, the results are coming to you.
okay.
Okay.
By a vote of, can't be 5-4.
Oh, sorry. That's wrong. Sorry, this is
It's okay.
trial and error.
Okay, then a vote from a vote of 5-3, Karen Borchardt is the new treasurer.
And I'm saving the chat in case anyone wants verification.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, folks. Thanks for treading some new ground there.
Wow, but I'll say one thing, it's exciting because we've been looking at all these different options of how you're allowed to vote, and we can do it in a fairly easy manner, especially with the candidates coming up and Who knows how long we're gonna be doing this, folks?
Yeah, and hopefully next time should be a little smoother.
I was gonna say staff, I don't know about the rest of the board, but yippee yahoo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Okay,
Thank you, John.
thank you.
Good job.
Yes, thanks, John. And Leslie, sorry to see you go. Welcome, Karen, and thanks to the two candidates who expressed interest. We're moving on to property owner comments and board response.
All right, we do have one hand, at least one hand, two hands raised here. I've got Nancy, I will bring in. Go ahead and announce your name and address.
I'm Nancy Alionak, 4 Sandalwood Circle, and I was very interested in Mr. Davis's comment on his memorandum, which he presented verbally to all of you. I want a copy posted. It's not a hypothetical thing to talk about a vehicle business. And I'm particularly interested in what he has written. He mentioned page 7, so it's obviously extensive. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nancy. And I have another hand raised here for Anne. Go ahead and announce your name and address, please.
Ann Cope, 52 Louise View Drive. And I really just want to reiterate what Connie had mentioned before. You had a chance to nominate somebody who had been elected, who the majority of voters chose. And once again, you've chosen to turn your backs on that and pick somebody that is, again, your choice. And this really has to end. And it's not going to end until we have more people vote to vote you people out. So I really encourage everybody to get their neighbors to vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Anne. I'll go ahead and return you to the audience here. And looks like I have another request from Nancy. Go
Hi,
ahead.
guys. I would really like to have Mr. Davis's opinion on what constitutes a business posted, so all of us can read it. This is not a trivial question, so I hope you can answer as to when and where it will be posted. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nancy. Anyone else? Just down at the bottom of the screen, there is a raise your hand option. Should be on both the app and on PC or Mac. I don't believe we have any call-in. And I've got Nancy here, has raised her hand again. I'll go ahead and bring her in. Go ahead, Nancy.
I would like an answer. Will you post Rich Davis's memorandum of at least 7 pages? Mr. Etrigan.
Thanks, Nancy. I was just making sure we had given everyone an opportunity to respond, so it was no way intending to dismiss your question. Yeah, you know, I think that's a reasonable request. How does the rest of the board feel?
I agree with that. I think it could maybe give some of the.
Am I visible?
Oh, it looks like maybe
Mr.
2 folks
President.
are, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Well, we had someone speaking when Steffi raised her hand. Stephanie had her hand up and Karen was speaking.
Karen, do you want to go ahead and finish your thought and then Steffi?
No, let her go.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
If we talk about or reference the attorney memo in an open board meeting, then we have to release it. We've already discussed that. So I don't know. I was just bringing up that point.
Mr. President, Karen.
Okay, sorry. I agree with that as well. It was helpful to me to read it, especially the case law that he referenced. So I think that maybe would provide the clarification that some of the community members I feel like have been looking for. So I'm in favor.
Mr. President, Paula.
I just want to say I agree with that. I think it would be a great thing to put out for the community.
Likewise. So I guess a better question is, does anyone have, or is anyone opposed to that? Okay, so Nancy, to answer your question, yes, we will absolutely accommodate that request.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
I was just going to say on the.
Mr.
Mike?
President, Joe.
Andrew, we'll have that up on the website tomorrow when first, as soon as I get Jamie to get it up on the website.
Mr.
Great.
President, Linda. Mr. President, Linda.
Oh, I think she might be frozen.
Oh,
Well,
we lost Linda.
maybe give her a minute to reconnect. And then in the meantime, oh. Well, okay, any further discussion or board response?
Mr. President, Josh.
I was going to make an announcement earlier, but it was kind of serious business there. I know some of you know that we've got a little flag contest going on in the community. We've got about 6 entries so far. A couple of them, I mean, they're all really great. People have written some cool stuff about their flags, and I would just encourage more people to participate, even if you don't think you have artistic abilities. So we've extended the deadline to June 1st so we could get some more entries, and a couple of people written in and have asked why don't we just use the Sudden Valley logo as a flag. I mean, we could do that, and I don't see a problem with having another flag on there that's just a logo, but the whole the genesis behind this is trying to bring the community together to do something creative during a really tough time. And this idea was brought on by a local Sudden Valley teen who came to admin with the idea, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I would encourage everyone to participate. And my goal is to actually make a little graphic of all the flags that we get. So it's like a one flag with all the flags, but we'll also be, picking a few to go out to the community for a community vote. And then whoever wins gets the bragging rights and gets their flag put up. So please enter the contest. Thanks.
Mr. President, AJ.
Never mind, I'm good, sorry.
Mr. President, Steffi's picture, oh, there, she's back again. Mr. President, Steffi. No, she says no. No, she says no. Sorry.
Any other, anything else from the attendees in the audience? I'm not currently seeing any hands raised.
Mr. President, move to adjourn.
Second.
By acclamation. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Have a great night. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.